Every generation of graphic design has that trend that feels like it's untouchable. The kind of design that appears everywhere all at once. On Instagram, in branding projects, in portfolios, on every top 10 design trends article. And for a while, those trends, they do feel modern, safe, and fresh. Like if you use them, your work automatically feels professional. But then some time passes, and those design trends, they become the equivalent to frosted tips and galaxy leggings. So in this video today, I'm going to walk you through some of the design trends from 2026 that I feel like are going to age horribly. And more importantly, why? Because this isn't about shaming designers. We've all followed trends. I've followed trends. That's just part of learning. The goal of this video is to understand the psychology behind good design. That way you could create work that lasts longer, work that feels more intentional and that actually connects with people. And yes, I will get slightly spicy today because there are some trends that I feel like are already on life support. One thing that I've personally noticed as a designer is trends, they're not necessarily bad. They could actually be quite useful and reflect culture and why people are responding to certain things at certain periods of time. The problem, it's when trends stop becoming tools and start becoming shortcuts. That is when design loses its personality. And that is when everything starts looking like it's been cloned. And honestly, we are entering one of the most repetitive eras that I have seen in years, especially online. So we need to talk about it. Okay, we have to start here. AI-generated sameness. And before the comments section catches on fire, I am not saying that AI tools are evil. I use AI tools sometimes. Most designers probably will in some form. But there is a massive issue that's happening right now. A lot of people use AI to skip the thinking phase of graphic design. And the thinking phase is literally where the magic happens. Good design is not just visual decoration. It's problem solving, it's emotion, context, strategy, human observation. But AI-generated visuals, it pulls from the average of what already exists, which means that most people rely on it without putting in their own perspective. And the more that this happens, the more everything starts collapsing into the same visual loop. You've probably already noticed it. The same dreamy gradients, the same over-polished mock-ups, the same impossible-looking 3D objects, the same symmetrical layouts, and the same futuristic branding. It starts to look less like design and more like everyone downloaded the same personality pack. And here's the scary part. When everyone could generate good-looking visuals instantly, personal taste becomes more important rather than less. Because clients are eventually going to realize pretty doesn't equal memorable. Designers who are going to survive long-term are going to be the ones that understand why they're making choices, not the one who could just generate images the fastest. Now let's talk about gradients. Designers love gradients. Companies love gradients. Software startups especially love gradients. And listen, gradients themselves are not the enemy. A good gradient, it can create energy, depth, atmosphere, and movement. But right now, we are in gradient overload. Every app right now wants to look like a glowing cosmic portal. There is this very specific gradient trend going on right now that I keep seeing, and it's like a very deep purple, blue, and pink. And every company seems to be using it right now. And for some reason, right now, it screams, hey guys, we're modern and techie. And that's the type of visual language that gets exhausted very quickly. Because when everyone is using the same emotional shortcut, it stops saying anything unique. Think about old web design. There was a point in time when everyone used a glossy button. And why? It's because it felt futuristic. And now we look back and we know exactly what era it came from. That is exactly what's going to happen with a lot of these gradients, especially when they're used with no deeper concept behind them. The strongest brand systems, they usually have something a lot deeper than just aesthetics carrying the brand identity. It could be things like strong typography, a voice, shape language, personality, storytelling. If your entire brand identity falls apart the second that someone removes a gradient, there probably wasn't much identity behind it in the first place. Okay, this one might hurt some feelings. Fake brutalism. Now, Real brutalist-inspired design has a whole history behind it. It came from rawness, architecture, functionality, anti-polish, a rejection of perfection. But what's happening right now is what I like to call Pinterest brutalism, when every brand throws random oversized type on a page, misalign things on purpose, add clashing colors and a major stretched out font, and then they all suddenly call it experimental. And sometimes it works, but most of the time, not so much. It feels manufactured, like someone carefully art-directed chaos somehow in a very sterile marketing meeting. You can almost hear the creative brief. Make it look edgy, but maybe not too edgy, because legal still has to approve it. And the reason that I think this trend will age so badly is because actual rebellion only works when there's intent behind it. If every skincare company, coffee company, startup company starts becoming anti-design, then anti-design just becomes another polished aesthetic. And ironically, that completely defeats the point. I also think newer designers sometimes confuse unreadability with creativity, which in my not so humble opinion is actually kind of dangerous, because communication is still very important. Design still has to do a job. You could still break the rules. Some of the best designers often do, but you need to understand the rules first. Otherwise, you're not breaking them intentionally. And then your work just looks like visual noise. And can we talk about what happened to logos for a second? Because somewhere along the line, every company decided that their logo has to look like it was designed by the same exhausted branding intern. Everything became geometric, flat, safe, sans serif, emotionally neutral. And yes, there are practical reasons for this. Logos need to scale better digitally. They need to work on mobile devices. They need to have a sort of flexibility. I understand all of that, but I also think that we lost a huge amount of personality in the process of this. A lot of modern logo rebrands, they feel a lot less distinctive than the versions that they replaced. And us as humans, we naturally remember distinctiveness. We remember quirks and textures, imperfections, character. And that's why a lot of vintage branding feels so emotionally rich. A lot of older logos, they kind of had a weirdness to them. They had like this flavor. Not everything has to look sleek enough to be part of a tech startup, a bank, or a minimalist candle company. Sometimes all three simultaneously. I think the audience is already getting fatigued by it, because branding is emotional. People connect with personality. A logo doesn't need to scream, but it should feel like it belongs to something specific, not like it came from the modern corporate font starter pack. Okay, generative Canva aesthetics. And before anyone gets upset, Canva is useful. Canva is amazing for accessibility for people who are not designers. It helps small businesses and beginners, people who otherwise have never touched design. That's a good thing. But templates are becoming a creative trap. You can instantly tell when someone built an entire identity out of a trending template aesthetic instead of actual creative design choices. You've seen it before. The beige wellness branding. The identical handwritten script fonts, those soft little blobby shapes, those tiny little sparkles, and all the neutral palettes, the same exact Instagram carousel layouts. It's creating this strange effect where every brand looks aesthetically pleasing, but this makes them all feel emotionally interchangeable. And this is actually a bigger conversation about social media in general. Algorithms reward familiarity. Because familiarity, it performs well quickly. So people, they naturally start copying whatever already appears successful. But the downside to all of this, over time, originality just gets sanded down. And here's the thing, people say they want to blend in, but the truth is that the audience remembers what stands out, not in an obnoxious way, not for shock value, but in a way that feels human. They want something that feels specific and real. And that's why brands and designers, the ones that are brave enough to develop their own point of view, are the ones that age the best. And honestly, that's probably the biggest point of this whole video. Trends are temporary, but perspective, it lasts. You don't need to chase every single aesthetic wave that hits the design industry, because the second that everybody starts copying that trend, that's when it dies. Instead, you have to ask yourself, Why am I choosing this typeface? Why this color? Why this layout? What is the emotion that I am trying to create? What story am I trying to tell here? That is where stronger design comes from, not blindly copying whatever is trending on TikTok or Pinterest for the next 6 weeks. And honestly, I think that the audience is craving more intentionality right now. People are overwhelmed with content, overwhelmed with visuals, overwhelmed with sameness. So when they see something with actual personality behind it, it stands out immediately. And I think that's really exciting because it means that designers still matter. Human observation still matters. Your taste, it still matters. You still matter. Anyway, those are my predictions. Some of these trends are definitely surviving the apocalypse longer than others, but I genuinely think that we're going to look back on this era kind of the same way that we look back on the early 2000s web design, with love, but also concern. So now I want to hear from you. What design trend do you think will age horribly? Or what trend are you already tired of seeing? And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe, because apparently I decided that this channel is going to be graphic design therapy with a little bit of violence. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!